Andrew McCarthy's Brats documentary got us thinking about the Brat Packiest Brat Pack movie of all, and that is St. Elmo's Fire. I love when we do this. I love when we go back and look at movies from our youth. This is the whole point of our Was It Great or Were You 8 series. Neither of us was 8 when St. Elmo's Fire came out.
I was 18 though.
Okay, close enough. I was 13. And so, but I have definite memories of what I thought of it then, which are different from how I feel about it now.
Yeah.
Alonzo, tell us about St. Elmo's Fire.
All I can remember is the 7 of us always together.
All right. So 7 of the most insufferable people ever graduate from college together and continue to hang out, but find out that the real world is pulling them in lots of directions. One becomes a stalker. One becomes a serial adulterer. One becomes a cocaine addict. One becomes a general ne'er-do-well, despite the fact that he has an infant child. One is just sort of mooning about his best friend's girlfriend. And one is fat shamed. So yeah. Fun.
But did you realize all this when you were 18 and you watched this movie? Neither did I.
I want to go on the record with a sincere apology to my good friend Kurt Holman, who he and I argued about this movie for quite some time. And I tried to defend it because I was very swept up in the Brat Pack moment. And also because at 18, I was still in college. And this movie, if you haven't gotten to the age of the characters yet, can feel aspirational. Once you are at or past the age of the characters, however, you want to send all of these assholes to an island somewhere because they're the worst. And Joel Schumacher shoots this movie with such fashion magazine sheen throughout. Yeah. Like the apartments are absurdly enormous. Even like the scrappy ones are huge, just room after room and little arty areas and stuff. The fact that at the end of the movie, when Rob Lowe comes to the rescue to get Demi Moore out of her apartment, he doesn't pull up in like a 1985 tow truck. He pulls up in like a 50s pickup truck that you would see like in a Bruce Weber layout. Like this whole movie is so art directed to sort of distract you from the awfulness of these characters.
Yeah, I noticed that from the very beginning this time too, like the Joel Schumacher-ishness of it all, the way that like the St. Elmo's bar lights reflect in the rain-soaked streets of Georgetown. Like it's all very glossy and long takes of them just bantering, like walking through this crowded bar and joking. And I can see how it was aspirational when you're young because they have this great connection. And for a while they have all these inside jokes and they all seem like they're really there for each other. And it's very high energy for a while before you realize what awful people they all are. Yeah, I was kind of shocked this time around at not only are they all awful, but the men in particular are super toxic in ways that the film romanticizes. Yeah. Like the whole thing with Emilio Estevez going after Andy McDowell, like he steals Mare Winningham's convertible that her shitty father has bought her to get her to marry the guy that he wants him to marry. Yeah. So he steals the Chrysler convertible and goes to whatever ski resort is, outside of Washington, D.C. and tracks her down.
After threatening her roommate to get the address.
Right. There's that. And then he's like banging on the door frantically. So entitled because she didn't show up to the party that he threw at the mansion for the wealthy Korean businessman that he's working for. Like that's all romanticized too. Like, hey, we can have a party at this guy's house.
Emilio is a true crime Netflix series waiting to happen in this show.
He's horrible.
Ridiculous.
He's banging on the door, and not only do they not tell him to fuck off and call the police, they invite him inside, put him by the fire, and give him cozy jammies to wear. And then he like sweeps her off her feet and kisses her, and that's also played for a romantic gesture. And then he drives away, got a big smile on his face, like he won. Like what the hell kind of message? And I know, it was a different time, it was the 80s, but is this behavior not obviously toxic and dangerous, no matter what the decade is?
Also, just to point out, I know that, I will very often give straight directors a hard time for presenting ridiculous and cartoonish queer characters. But let me be clear, gay directors can do it too. Case in point, Ron, the neighbor, who is the most useless character, a guy who swans out in the hall with a literal perfect strawberry poised on the rim of his margarita, who's like pining for Andrew McCarthy the whole time. When the big crisis with Demi Moore happens at the end of the movie, he's like, what's happening? Like, oh, I just had my nose done. It's like, girl, come on. Like, Joel Schumacher is already giving us this like crazy white and crazy wealthy world of these a-holes, but he's also like, you know, shitting on his own people. So, you know, that's a legacy. I don't know.
You forgot to mention the fact that he's also an interior designer.
Oh, well, Natch. Yes, that should go without saying, frankly.
What other job could he have?
And if he's the guy responsible for the wall-sized Billy Idol face with the neon ankh earring, like, if you have a license for that, they should suspend it.
Yes, and the Pepto pink walls.
Oof.
And the flowy curtains to signify her inner turmoil,
Yes.
you know. Yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff here, but like it takes a little while for us to realize how awful it is. And there's, again, with all the other men, for example, the Judd Nelson character is serially cheating on Ali Sheedy. Like, he can't help himself but fuck the woman who, like, she models the lingerie for him, and then they do it standing up in the dressing room. Like, who does that? What store is this where you're doing this? And then
Who's
he
covering
buys
the register?
right, and then that too, and then he buys her the red teddy. Like, did he buy her the one that she was modeling for him? Did she get a different one off the rack that was clean, hopefully?
And when they're rolling around on the bed, like, is he still, you know, like, was there a wet one between sessions?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
These are all good questions. And then, you know, Rob Lowe, who I have to say, I loved Rob Lowe back then. Of all the Brat Pack people, like, that is the one that I pined for, that I have posters of him on my wall, like his Oxford Blues poster and all that.
And Schumacher was so obsessed with him that he basically turned the male lead of the Lost Boys into Rob Lowe, you know.
With the mullet and the saxophone. That sax performance goes on for freaking ever. And that song is terrible. And everyone's like, yeah.
There are few moments in 80s cinema quite as funny as Rob Lowe saying, let's rock.
In the middle of his sax solo.
Clapping on the 1 and 3. Oh, God, it's ridiculous.
It's very exciting. But then, you know, the fact that he, as you say, fat shames Mare Winningham, who's secretly in love with him. I mean, yes, he's beautiful. I mean, and he's beautiful, but also, like, he's an awful human being.
Yes.
He has a wife and a child he's completely neglecting. And then when Demi Moore later on is in need of a friend, is feeling lost, like, all he does is paw at her. And then at the end, though, when he takes off, when he gets in the bus to go from DC to New York, it's not like he's going across the country. It's a really quick ride up I-95. It's not that far away. They all send him off like he's going off to war, and they all forgive him. Like, he's been pretty horrible to everybody, and they all, maybe that's the message of St. Elmo's Fire, is that, you know, it's about forgiveness.
Yeah, well, that if you're attractive enough, you can get away with your bad boy bullshit for a very long time, you know. I
guess so. I also want to mention that both Judd Nelson and Ali Sheedy are delivering all their lines as if they're still in the Breakfast Club. Did you notice that?
Yeah, he's really, like, he's either screaming or hyper enunciating or both, which hats off to that. I mean, Sheedy has sort of she's doing some Allison, but she's also giving you kind of this, like, nasal Bryn Mawr thing. What about your extracurricular activities, Alec? You know. And I like the detail of her leaving her pearls on while having sex with Andrew McCarthy, like she's Seika or something, you know.
So decadent. Yeah. It's so 80s softcore porn, but she's also kind of looking off to the side like she does in the Breakfast Club. And he's giving every line like, without lamps, there'd be no light. You know, he's doing everything just like over enunciating. Cherry, did you belong to the physics club? So
it was his one trick, you know.
I guess. So I noticed that so much more. Anyway, everyone's horrible in this. Does this film have any redeeming qualities whatsoever? Like, why was it a phenomenon? Why did we like it?
Again, I think that if you were young enough for this to seem aspirational, the sheen of it and their collective star power made it seem like, oh, what a great bunch of people, you want to hang out with them. And I think it's only when you can kind of take a step back and be like, Oh no! Oh no! 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 No!
No.
You don't want to be with any of these people. Maybe Mare Winningham, but even she is a bit of a, she's got a lot going on. Yeah. So I think this is, we talk about how there was a period where stars could open a movie, and I think that this is a thing where stars make this movie. Like if you have 7 less charismatic and attractive people here, I think it would very quickly become aware that like you're dealing with this like gaggle of sociopaths, but yeah, I think their star power sort of just made it work, and Schumacher's like insane art direction. But it is now very much a Reagan era snapshot of a lot of things from that decade that were appalling that we try to forget ever happened.
Yeah, a lot of cocaine. I think Demi Moore is actually pretty good in this.
She is.
And what's interesting about that is that, as we learned from the Brats documentary, that she had a sober companion. She had this tenuous hold on her own sobriety at this point, where she is playing a character who is in the throes of mania and her own substance abuse and all that. So I think she's really good in this, and she gets to be, glamorous and larger than life, but also show that she's crumbling inside. So I think she's the best of it. And Andrew McCarthy, has a few zingers here and there within his one note kind of cynical depiction of the world. It is
a very one-note performance. Yeah, some of the lines absolutely land, but like the idea that you would get a piece published in the Post on the front page called "The Meaning of Life" when you're the intern in the obits department is like, that is a Hallmark movie moment. That is a thing that you see in a Hallmark Christmas movie where like, oh, stop the presses, somebody wrote a thing about being in love, that's just nonsense. But yeah, no, you're right. I think Demi Moore, it probably had the most real life experience to bring to her role than anybody else did. The rest of them were sort of young actors, and they had been young actors for that sort of transitional high school to college to after period of most people's lives. So they were coming at it kind of inventing it, and she had lived some of this stuff, and I think brings that to the role.
All right. So what is your number now today as a grown-ass person on St. Elmo's Fire?
I will give it a 3 just for sort of, it is watchable, but not in the way that it thinks it is.
Yeah, I will say like a 3.5 because I hated everybody and was cringing a lot, but it's also like glossy trash.
Yeah.
So, and I like glossy trash.
And again, if they want to reunite the cast for a sequel, I'm there.